Hello everyone, Tactical Lich here, and today we have a battle from the League of Extraordinary Degenerates, a tournament hosted by Cool Umbrella. We'll be fighting against Joy Boy from the MTK clan in this Warriors vs Skaven matchup. I do think that Warriors are usually quite disadvantaged against the artillery of Skavens, especially with Avalanche Mortars, Jezzails, and Plague Hawk Catapults, all ready to annihilate their infantry formations from afar, and then up close and personal, there are the Poison Wing Globadiers. So I'll be breaking out some unconventional tactics here, trying to cut through the Skaven chaff and get to their squishy artillery core. For the army builds here, a ton of Marauders mixed in with great weapons and regular variants, and then the true core of my infantry, 3 aspiring champions. These guys are quite expensive these days, but they're still very solid, especially with their low unit model count, making them less susceptible to the area of effect missile damage, like Poison Wind Globadiers and Avalanche Mortars. For the mobility, we do have quite a few units as well. 2 Marauder Horsemen on each flank, mixed in with 2 more Chaos Warhounds on each flank. So getting a full 20 stack army. Leading the army, we have Prince Sigvold the Magnificent himself, with nothing but his auric armor for that regenerating health, and supported by a single unit of Chaos Sorcerer with fire, coming in with nothing but the Burning Head and Kindle Flame. On the other side of the battlefield, the Skaven army getting some pretty standard units, I do think. Clan Rats with spears and regular Clan Rats. They're just mixing in together in the front line. They're providing a bit of chaff to slow down enemy push. And then at the back there, a few Skaven Slave Slingers to counteract the Chaos Skirmishing Cavalry, and a couple Poison Wing Globadiers to clear out the Chaos Infantry, especially in case there are some more elite infantry. Now, for the expensive artillery core, we have the Avalanche Mortars and the Natty Boobles Sharpshooters. Very standard stuff right there. They're guarded by a couple Red Ogres and some hidden Ixchia's Triads. Leading the army, we have Ikit himself on his little Doom Flayer, coming in with a few very solid abilities in spells: Flensing Ruin, Howling Warp Gale in case I have Manticores, and unlimited power for extra power recharge, and also Brass Orb for that area of effect damage. He is supported by a Packmaster on a Brute Horror, and that's it for the army builds. Now let's get the battle started and see whether this Horde of Chaos can overcome the Horde of Skavens. Fighting Skavens with a melee rush army means that I need to get close as soon as possible, because the more time I take marching towards the Skaven formations, the more time they have to nuke my forces with the Avalanche Mortars and Warplock Jezzails. So we'll be going into fast forward here as my units march forward, the mobility also moving into flanking position. The Avalanche Mortars will open up with a first volley going straight into some of my great weapons, Marauders, nuking around half the unit away, while the Warplock Jezzails, the Natty Boobles Sharpshooters, are now opening up at Prince Sigvold. Thankfully for me, Prince Sigvold doesn't have the biggest unit model, plus Silver Shield, so even after the Shield Breaker effect, still blocking roughly 30% of the missiles, mitigating quite a bit of that damage with the small unit model as well. On the flanks, the Marauder Horsemen not turning on skirmishing mode will be charged by the Red Ogres, plus being hit by a volley of Avalanche Mortars, taking some devastating damage. Warhounds, after taking some shots, will hunt down the Skaven Slaves. The Marauder Horsemen are also moving in to threaten the box on the other flank. Prince Sigvold also getting into the back line alongside some Chaos Warhounds, hoping to silence the Skaven missiles. The Avalanche Mortars did quite a bit of heavy lifting, but now they are disrupted as the Warhounds are slipping through the defenses of the Ixchia's Triads. Triads try to use their Shadow Clone to pin down the Hounds, but the Hounds simply slip through the gaps in their formations. The Avalanche Mortars will be silenced for now. Aspiring Champions are moving in, while Marauders are cutting through some of the Skaven chaff, but most of them are actually annihilated by the Poison Wing Globadiers and Avalanche Mortars. That is fine for me, because the real killing power are the Aspiring Champions, who are now moving into combat. They do have splash attacks, so against a horde of chaff like the Clan Rats or Skaven Slaves, they can be very effective in clearing them out. Now, one of the Poison Wing Globadiers has been shut down by the Hounds. Aspiring Champions, even some of the Great Weapon Marauders are joining in on this fun. The Ixchia's Triads are moving into position ready to help them out, but they probably don't want to fight the Aspiring Champions. Aspiring Champions having solid melees that's 40 attack, 45 defense, plus magic damage can very effectively deal with the rather squishy Ixchia's Triads. The Triads relying on physical resistance for protection is a rather squishy unit and will not be trading well into the Aspiring Champion's magic attacks. Marauders continue to push, but many of them are still suffering from the bombardment. You can see that the Avalanche Mortars and Natty Pooble's Sharpshooters have been secured in the back line there, once again opening up on my poor Marauder infantry, while on the left flank of my army, a lot of these Warhounds have been pushed off by the Red Ogres and a combination of Clan Rats plus a Kid Claw himself. Now, the Poison Globadiers are shooting at the Aspiring Champions, but not the most devastating damage. That's partly because the Poison Globadiers is very relying on the splash damage, the explosive damage, to actually work down enemy units, and against a low unit model count, their missiles are not as effective as usual. But if they switch their targets to something like, say, the Marauder Horseman, who is also suffering from Flensing Ruin, then they can do some good damage. But alas, here comes the Marauders with great weapons. With their armor-piercing attacks, they can and will cut down the Poison Wing Globadiers in a quick hurry. At the back there, once again, some regrouped. Marauder Horsemen and Warhounds are jumping on top of the Avalanche Mortars, not doing too much damage due to their armor, but more about buying time for the Marauders to catch up and start pressuring the Skaven backline once more. A little bit of Brass Orb plus Burning Head going around this vicinity, doing some pretty good damage to both Skavens and the Marauders. The Burning Head didn't actually do that much contact, but the Brass Orb did a lot of friendly fire, which is a great boon for me because Aspiring Champions doesn't care about area of effect spells. So the Clan Rat Spears are being worked down while the rest of my infantry are all beelining straight for the Avalanche Mortars and Natty Booble's Sharpshooters. The Poison Wing Globadiers are also retreating, so I'll be moving some of these Aspiring Champions to deal with some of these Poison Winds, hoping to just silence these devastating missile units. On the far side there are still some Aspiring Champions stuck on the Clan Rats, while here comes some returning Warhounds to clean up the Skaven slaves. The Warhounds once again returned, but the Packmaster will be chasing them off. Same goes for the Marauder Horsemen here. The Chaos Sorcerer of Fire have been dumping down Burning Heads all over the place, but now he'll be also engaging in melee combat as a desperate measure to shut down all these Skaven missiles. Prince Sigvald still over half health. He'll be fighting alongside the Aspiring Champions, though that does make him and the Aspiring Champions a good target for Flensing Ruin. The Kid Claw and the Packmaster will be jumping on top of him, hoping to 2v1 him and work down my leadership, but Prince Sigvald having solid melee stats, 70 attack, 60 melee defense, he is holding firm. A little bit of Burning Head there, hoping to roast through these Poison Wing Globadiers and other Skaven chaff, doing some pretty good work, adding that burnt debuff onto the Red Ogres, forcing them into an early rout. The Marauder Horseman will also be charging into the Poison Wing Globadiers as well. Not really doing much damage, but more like fixing them in place, allowing the Marauders with great weapons to catch up and cut them down. Now, as for the Sigvald fight, he was not having a good time there, even with the Aspiring Champions around. So, the Prince Sigvald Magnificent will be moving back a bit, forcing a kid to separate from Packmaster, and he'll be dueling the Packmaster alone. But he's holding on just fine for now, actually. His perfect figure does allow him to fight in full strength all the time, regardless of how long he has fought in combat. So he does have his full melee stats, while the Packmaster has exhaustion, debuffing his melee stats, fighting less effectively. Now, Aspiring Champions are moving in. I don't really have a choice here. Even this means moving the Aspiring Champions into the area of effect for Flensing Ruin, because Prince Sigvald is extremely low and he needs something to support him right now. And Chaos Warhounds are not going to hold around for too long. Aspiring Champions, as expected, are holding firm with their elite melee stats and very solid leadership. While the two Skaven characters are busy fighting Sigvald, they are also distracted being fixed in place, allowing my units to deliver some quite effective rear charge. Packmaster, routed by a rear charge from the Warhounds and Chaos Sorcerer of Fire, will be escorted off the battlefield as the white line is just right there. That leaves a kid the only Skaven remaining still on the battlefield. Now, he does not want to engage with me right now because I do have my units consolidated around Prince Sigvald the Magnificent, giving myself mass and elite fighting force to beat down a Kid Claw. On the far side there probably will be the last hope of the Skavens, some returned Poison Wing Globadiers moving in, hoping to shoot down my Marauder Horsemen, but there's simply not that many units to deal with the Aspiring Champions other than a Kid himself with his Doom Flayer and the Flensing Ruin spams. Yes, you can see yet another Flensing Rune is dropped right here. Prince Sigvald being drained by the spell. Unfortunately, the Aspiring Champions are also taking damage, as I do have to keep them around Prince Sigvald as a bit of bodyguard. A Kick Claw is charging in with the Doomflayer, trying to snipe out Prince Sigvald. But here comes the Aspiring Champions coming in to reinforce this fight. They're taking some damage, but their encouragement aura does keep themselves in the fight. I do think they can encourage themselves, right? Actually, it doesn't matter since Prince Sigvald has encouragement aura anyways. A Kick Claw once again jumping on top of Prince Sigvald the Magnificent, dropping his HP and leadership low, but the rest of the Skavens are being slowly worked through by my Aspiring Champions and the roaming mobility. A little bit of miscast damage from unlimited power, forcing a kid to suffer some HP damage, and that puts their balance of power into army losses. Prince Sigvald, barely surviving the engagement with last few hundred of HP, will be emerging victorious. GG to my opponent, Joyboy here, who put up a great fight with his Skaven army, but unfortunately my unconventional Aspiring Champion build managed to crack the Skaven box and grind down all those missile units. As you can see here, the Aspiring Champions did some pretty good work, mostly surviving the combat as they basically shrugged off all kinds of missiles being thrown at them. The Marauder Horsemen and the Warhound were very good at disrupting the Skavens from firing, also chasing down routed units, while the swarm of Marauders overwhelmed the front line of the Skaven army, combined with the Burning Hat from the Sorcerer of Fire, roasting the Skaven front line, forcing them to back off, allows me a quicker time in breaching the Skaven defenses. Prince Sigvald earning back his worth, though only barely, even after reaching his heal cap, though his perfect vigor and elite melee stats did help him to protect himself and fend off the character sniping from a Kick Claw and the Packmaster. As for the Skavens here, a Kick Claw did some amazing damage with Flensing Ruin and just running through a bunch of my units with his Doomflayer, plus of course the Brass Orb devastating my formations. Packmaster not doing too much damage, while the missiles here, the Anti-Bubbles Sharpshooter not having the best time shooting at Prince Sigvald, while the Avalanche Mortar is getting quite a bit of kills, but mostly just shooting at the dirt cheap Marauders, so not the most value either. For the rest of the army here, Poison Wind Globadiers, these guys got some amazing value. Definitely shooting up a bunch of my Marauder infantry and some of my Aspiring Champions as well, but overall just not able to carry the game as the Clanrat and Skaven Slave infantry got pretty much ground to dust by my elite Aspiring Champions, and of course some of the Marauders pushing through their lines. And then with the Great Weapon Marauders, the armor piercing gave me a much easier time to work down the weapons teams. The Ixchus Triads also didn't have a good trade in this battle, as they are not exactly the best unit to trade against enemy infantry. And that's it for today's battle. I hope you all enjoyed this multiplayer action, and if you want to see more multiplayer content of Total War Warhammer, be sure to subscribe to my channel and check out the archives. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Tactical Lich, signing out.